So our first speaker on the panel, come on down, David Duccini. David is CEO at Silicon Prairie Capital Partners, a modern investment bank inspired by investment, crowdfunding, and powered by automation. He's been neck deep in blockchain and fintech for 9-10 years, just like Jeremy. Software for 25 plus. David is on a dozen patents for blockchain technology with Wells Fargo and wrote his own unique cryptocurrency called 2Give. That was number 2Give. You gave me some like in 2017, I remember that. It had a market cap worth over 20 million. I should have sold it then. David has been an active member of Bitcoin Talk since 2011 with status listing as legendary, ladies and gentlemen. Additional experience includes founding an internet service provider that acquired 7 competitors before a merger and a successful exit. David, thank you for joining today's panel. Alex Shephoister, am I saying that right? I've never asked you that actually.
Shephoister.
Shephoister?
Shephoister.
Hoister. Oh, and now no. Alex is partner at the law firm of Moss and Barnett, where he focuses his practice on business and legacy planning. We'll touch on that probably with wills and so forth. He serves as strategic counsel to early stage ventures, emerging high growth companies, and privately held businesses spanning a wide range of industries, including cryptocurrency, digital assets, technology, manufacturing, sports and entertainment, real estate, investment funds, and financial services. And he still has time to be founder and president of Minnesota Crypto Council. This was mentioned by Megan. Through the Minnesota Crypto Council, he helps educate individuals, businesses, and governments on this new and rapidly evolving technology and industry. He regularly presents on various topics in the crypto space, including custodial options and issues, Bitcoin basics, mining, and market updates. And tonight, ways to stay safe, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and lastly, we've got Jenna Cady. Jenna has been in crypto since 2017. She's a small business owner and is passionate about creating crypto content for Jenna X Media. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our panel on bull market caution, scams, emotions, and securing your crypto. We have a second microphone that I'll have panelists pass back and forth, or if a couple of you get talking back and forth, I'll give you my mic. So I need to pull up this. Is it here? Okay, so get things started here. And I just want to say that this is a topic that we were interested in because, one, it's a bull market, and during bull markets, people go crazy and they make some bad decisions. And I've known people that are worth millions and people that are worth not much. And they've lost, right, from the bottom to the top, right? We've seen high profile people on Twitter lose a lot of money. And we've seen a lot of publicized on Twitter of a lot of close calls. They'll say, hey, I almost fell for this scam, here's how. And then they'll go into it. It's so elaborate. And obviously the more money you have, maybe the more targeted you are. But a lot of people, a couple of people that I know have been scammed. I was scammed once. I thought I was getting, you too? Yeah, I thought I was getting the Uniswap airdrop, and I lost $500 in my of crypto in my MetaMask account. That was a cheap class, I guess, in security that I took. $500 isn't bad tuition. So, this is something that just about everyone's at risk for, and people of all expert levels have had happen. And yet, when it does, we feel like we're the only ones. We're embarrassed in this and that. So. Let's start with, we have 2 major topics. One is like scams, all the kinds of ways that you might be walking on a thin ice, be careful. And then the last one is security. What should I do? I've got my coins. Should I leave them? Should I have them on one of these? Should I trust them on Coinbase? What should I do if I get hit by a bus? Where do my keys go? Should I tell my family about them? Things like that. So let's start with scams. And Jen, I'll start with you.
Sure.
We brainstormed on this in our prep call, but whether it's the social engineering, the imposter profiles, I'm sure you have a bunch of people on you online pretending to be you. Whether you should respond to DMs, rug pull. There's a lot of different areas we could take this. But I guess what are some things that you see that are just sort of like low-hanging fruit? Like, oh my God, this is just, the space is rampant with this. People need to watch out for that.
Sure, Brandon, thanks. Well, honestly, first of all, I love that you actually shared one of your stories because I think that honestly, a lot of times people are embarrassed whenever you get scammed, especially if you've been in the industry for a while, right? Or you've been around it and you think, how did I fall for this, right? And it actually happened to me when I was newer onto social media. I got a DM from an influencer who was really well known in the space. And they're like, hey, do you want to trade with me? And I'm like, yeah. And I checked their profile. It looked fine. Didn't realize an O was actually a zero. Long story short, I sent over like $2,500 to this really shady trading website and I couldn't get it back off. And then I was like, okay, gotta block everything. You have to move forward. It happened. It's one of those things, but if I can prevent it from happening to others, then, you know, if I can help just one person, it's worth it. But definitely, once I started getting more notoriety in the space, I noticed, you know, I would get DMs from other people saying, hey, is this you? No, that's not me. And I tell everyone, like, I'll never DM them first. But listen, no influencer is going to come to you and be like, hey, do you want to join my trading group, etc. They're just not going to. Never, ever give out your personal information. This is basic stuff. It goes without saying, but sometimes we just forget, right? So that's super, super important. But also, something I want to touch on that I was actually in a space the other night and we were discussing, Base blockchain is becoming really, really popular, and with the MetaMask wallet and everything, and we're noticing all this dust in our wallets. When you go on Uniswap and you're like, oh, I'm getting these free tokens, do not interact with them. If you did not sign up for an airdrop or you didn't know it's coming or you don't know what the token is, don't swap it out for a couple bucks because you are putting yourself at risk of getting that wallet drained. So it's definitely not worth it. Do your research for sure. But that's just some of the things that I've been seeing.
Oh, okay. Maybe two quick things, Brandon, if I can mention. So, and this is kind of like you mentioned, we think about this as basics, right? But the scams are getting a lot more sophisticated. Part of it is, you know, AI and technology is getting better. Like, you're not going to get Coinbase customer service that's calling you, asking you for information, right? I mean, for the most part, I usually don't even answer if I don't recognize the number, right? Because chances are, if it's anything important, they're going to leave a voicemail. They're going to know how to get a hold of you. But don't be giving out your personal information in that way. The other is emails, right? Same thing. You're starting to get emails. Actually, this isn't maybe just starting. This has been going on for a while, but it'll look like it's from, again, customer service from Coinbase or Kraken or somebody, right? And it looks legitimate. And it says, you know, whatever, something you need to confirm your address or do this or that. And it asks you to click a link. If you actually suspect that it might be legitimate, you still go log in to your own account separately. Don't click on the link. It'll take you probably to some fraudulent site that isn't legitimate. So just making sure that you're being cautious and think about whenever somebody's asking you for your information, it probably is not legitimate, and approach it with that perspective, right? Be cautious. Again, go on the back way, go log into your Coinbase or whatever account and find out, hey, do I have a notice here or something that I have to do to update it?
Yeah, and maybe this goes without saying, but you know, the reason why we're having this panel and there's such urgency with what we're talking about is because there's no recourse, as far as I know. There are a couple of high-profile cases where I've seen people like put on Twitter, "Hey, CZ, you know, the guy from Binance, I lost this much," and he's actually intervened and said, "Okay, we'll freeze that account that has your crypto." But that's, I don't know, one in a million. If you lose your tokens, maybe someone else can speak to this better than I can, but they're gone.
Yeah.
Right?
They're gone.
There's nothing you're going to do about that. So this isn't something that you get a do-over.
So standard caveat, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV. So I'm new to Genie, and I got scammed for 79 Bitcoins.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
But back when it was for like 90 cents. So I've been involved in the space since 2010. Yes, it hurts. It hurts a lot, right? I did not get in the space to get stupid crypto rich. I thought this is transformative technology. I think it's super powerful. But yes, running the math in hindsight, yeah, that hurts. It hurts a lot. And so that scam was literally just like Bitcoin classifieds, right? So it really got me started thinking about reputation and discernment, and really got me down the path of thinking about how can this technology be used to create a web of trust. So if anybody knows about PGP and sort of champion the idea of what we trust, so we don't have this command and control structure. We literally have a peer-to-peer kind of security system. So other sort of common things to watch out for, they're always going to try and take you off of the channel or the platform that you're on. So this is very common on LinkedIn. I get scammed or attempted scammed, I don't know, a dozen times a day with people that would have fake profiles. For some reason, they're always, fuzzy Asian beautiful women in quirky poses that somehow are the CEO of L'Oreal. Not even joking. But yeah, exactly, and typos too, exactly. So one of the things I did is I actually put my middle initial in my first name, so it's David space V, so I can tell if it's a robot that's responding versus just calling me by my name David. But yeah, they're always going to try and take you off channel. So the goal is to get you off of the platform and get you onto something like WhatsApp or Telegram, etc. So that's a huge red flag. The other thing we see is that once you start to get status, they're going to start shopping and triangulating. So literally every day I wake up and there are emails from, quote, my employees and team members that are like, oh, I need to update my bank information for my payroll services. How do I do it? And they're almost always Gmail addresses. So I always hit respond. I move their address down to CC. I respond to abuse@gmail. And they say, how do you respond? Make better choices. So yeah, to be clear, if you see something, say something. This is the core tenet of all kind of information security. And so you absolutely can help take down these people by reporting abuse. I've had people clone our entire website. In fact, this just happened last week. I posted that there was a group in South Africa or South America, South Africa. And they basically had a German ISP and they had our site and they were sending out emails claiming they were high net worth individuals. And I just went and did a who is on the IP address and found the ISP. And within about 20 minutes, they took that site offline. Wow. So if you see something, say something.
Can I add something?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so also we have this big celebrity token trend, right, that's coming out right now, and everybody's launching a token, and I'm actually pretty sure Caitlyn Jenner just rubbed me while I was here and launched another token on ETH, but that's besides the point. You have to really be careful. If you're gonna ape into a meme coin or something, and I'm talking ape in hard, you need to be able to read a contract address or at least check it out, make sure it's not a honeypot, make sure they don't have blacklisted addresses that can't sell except for a few people. And with a lot of the celebrity tokens, a lot of these celebrities are actually really dumb. They're hiring middlemen to kind of like launch these tokens for them. And a lot of these middlemen, we're seeing that their addresses, their wallet addresses are linked to scams and rug pulls and everything. So just be really, really careful where you're putting your money. Don't get distracted. Like if you have a plan, an exit strategy is super important. Stick with it. Don't lose sight because of the meme craze. I'm a DJ and I'm saying that, so.
And maybe just keep in mind, a little bit of balance. We talked about, $500, $2,500. That's different for everybody, right? But if you've got what's a meaningful amount of money to you, make sure you're being a little bit more cautious when we talk about aping into something. What does that mean to you, and what's meaningful for you, and do the appropriate amount of diligence so that, hey, if you don't care if you lose it and this is just gambling money that you kind of consider it gone anyway, maybe you don't have to take as much time doing your diligence, but then don't complain on the back end either.
Yeah, I would say just the last piece of advice, because I've literally seen like 4,000 business pitches. Some of them are crypto, many of them are not. And the core question I always ask myself front and center is, what problem does this solve? And do I know anybody who has this problem? Like during the last bull run, the dumbest thing I saw was they had a coin for a smart suitcase that required the coin to unlock the suitcase. I'm just like, who has this problem, right? So that's front and center. Just ask yourself, okay, what problems does this solve? And do I personally know anybody who has this problem? Because if they don't know who has this problem, it's a vanity project, or someone just wants to get stupid crypto rich.
Yeah.
So David, that's what you said about reporting was interesting, because I've never heard that, and I know that seems like, well, duh, report it, but I've actually I get so many, right, scams, and whether it's email or Telegram messages or something like that. But would you take the time that, like, you respond to Google abuse team? Mm-hmm. Do you respond then on other platforms and give them a heads up?
Yeah, so you can typically you can figure out, okay, you can do some DNS looking to see where the email server is hosted. You can see if they're sending you to a website. Obviously, okay, here's the other piece of advice, right? Just front and center, you all are filthy. turn off your images in your email client right now today. This is how they know you're opening your email, right? So you've got to turn off images in your email client so that you don't automatically pop those images. That's how they know that you've opened up your email. So first of all, turn that off. And then second of all, yes, you can use whois on the IP address information to figure out where that website is hosted. And that will always list some sort of abuse address in there. You start there, they're almost all automated. Europe is actually awesome at takedown notices. And it doesn't take a lot. They might bounce you to their email will respond. They'll bounce you to a site. You go there, and literally, I had a hacker that was trying to break into our system, and I chased them across 4 different hosting providers, including Outlook or AWS. And I actually finally found them back in Eastern European country. And the beautiful thing about their abuse, it was literally their lawyer. Their lawyer responded like, "Okay, we've taken care of it," and that person never showed up again. Now, I don't know when they said they took care of it, and I hope that, it was gentle and kind and respectful, but after they kept me busy for several days, I don't think I care that much.
Dave, kind of a big picture question, but being in tech for as long as you have, and crypto from the start, and seeing the scams get more elaborate as crypto evolves, I don't know, how do you, is it just like, well, that's just it's just the price of doing business. It's just part of the technology. The scams are going to come along with the rest of the technology. Or does it kind of make you think, man, this space is in trouble if we can't do something about this, in a bigger scale?
I mean, the hardest part of any kind of information security is if I literally had $1, I would spend 99 cents of it on information security awareness, just training people not to click on things. If you could just stop clicking on things and turn images off again. Shout out for my friends in email, turn your images off. But I think the problem is that we're soft and pink inside, and I think that we activate on FOMO, and they're really good now at finding information about FOMO. In fact, we have one of our team members is in active military duty, and he was, I can't say where he was, but literally they had figured out that one of his teammates, which is a high-ranking official, was going to be in a certain city, and some dating app person reached out to them. They've got access to our information. It's all over the world. It's a little bit the cost of doing business. But again, it's not the last train leaving the station. You've got to just take your hands off the keyboard and unplug for a bit, right? You got to sort of create some sort of defense against FOMO. And I don't really know what the cure is for that. What do you think?
I don't know about cure for that, but I would echo what we've all heard about comparing, Bitcoin, blockchain, crypto to the internet. And when's the last time you guys looked at your spam or your junk folder? I just about guarantee you have every single day multiple emails that are scams. Now, fortunately, there are filters that we've developed to help try to direct those. And so hopefully finding ways like that to help filter out some of the noise. But ultimately, the internet is such a transformative technology. Pretty much everybody continues to use it on an everyday basis, multiple hours every single day. And, I think all of us sitting here understand the transformative nature of this industry as well. And so I don't think, the fact that we also have abuses in this industry, like any industry, is going to deteriorate from the trajectory of where this is going, at least on a longer term. But it is an issue that a lot of people fall prey to, and we're in a new space in the digital world. A lot of people don't really understand what that means. And it's, if I can see it in my hand, I get it. I know that I have this. But when it's digital, it's a little bit harder.
To answer the FOMO part, that's kind of tough, right? Because if you've been in crypto for a while, I feel like no one's really immune, and not financial advice, but if I'm going to FOMO, I'm not going to FOMO into a green candle. I'm going to do it in a dip if I have to have it. That's just the way I'm going to do it. But just take a step back, think about it, see if it's something you really want, if the narrative is going to be around, yeah.
Do you want to say more? You mentioned in our pre-call the idea of having a plan. And so if that's a general rule that you follow for real, if there's a token that I think is really going to ramp up, just wait for a red candle before I do. If that's a really hard, fast rule for you, does that speak to the idea of being disciplined and having a plan?
Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, you're going to get wrecked. You're going to get stuck holding the bags. So this will be my second bull run cycle. And, last time I thought that we were going to be up only. We're never coming down, right? I'm not selling. Well, then I end up writing those bags back down. And then it's like, well, what do? I have to either add to them or just hold on to them until the next run and hope that they're going to perform as well. And I'm a former XRP maxi, so you can probably understand my pain right now. All right, okay, I'm glad we got that out.
There's a good 12-step group for that.
Yeah, well, it's been rough, I'll tell you. So honestly though, they have different apps you can use to create a crypto exit plan, but you can even use a spreadsheet, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have, spend a lot of money on it, but the fact is, have a plan. Okay, when this hits $5, I'm going to take X amount. Everybody's exit strategy is different, but you have to do what works for you and stick with it. You're not gonna go broke taking profits. You can't have, as my fiance tells me, Jenna, you can't have all the gains, but you can have some of the gains, right? You're never gonna sell the exact top, you're never gonna buy the exact bottom, but if you make yourself a plan, and I like to leave myself a moon bag. I never sell out 100% of something because you never exactly know, right? And I feel a little bit better, but otherwise it just makes the most sense. Otherwise, this will be the most mentally draining thing in the whole wide world. Crypto is wild, and we all know, like we're on a roller coaster, but having a plan really helps.
Yeah, that's actually, I think, a good something to kind of keep yourself disciplined is keep track of your trades, because you won't do as many if you discipline yourself to keep track of them all.
The IRS likes you to keep track of trades.
I've done taxes now several years in this space, and I'm reminded on some of those years I did. I'm like, man, I did way too much than I care to have to keep track of every year. And so actually, it's disciplined me to do a lot less, and that's probably smarter for me financially anyway.
I mean, the best advice, regardless of any asset class, and this is just about the only financial advice I will ever give, is just simple dollar cost averaging. Like essentially if you just set and forget, that's what Vanguard has demonstrated, the mutual fund kind of approach is create a basket, don't go more in than 10% of any of your total net worth because you can't recover if the thing tanks. So, and that's about the only advice I will give is to consider dollar cost averaging. And and set reasonable horizons. Like, again, don't have that, the gambler's fallacy, like the sunk cost mentality. That's also a hard thing to sort of overcome, right? Like, well, I'm in for a penny, I should be in for a pound. Well, if you go for broke, you might get broke.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's switch gears then. John. The question was rug check XYZ and wallet guard and other tech to help safeguard against scams.
Yeah, so there's chain analysis. They're like the preeminent essentially blockchain analysis firm, the ones that the governments use. There's the OFAC database that the Office of Foreign Access Control manages. Again, I'm a big fan of multi-sig or MPC wallets. This is what I think what we really need to do to essentially create a decentralized trust store. I'm a little concerned about firms that do have some sort of custody, not your keys, not your coins. And for sure have a wallet that, and it doesn't have to be a cold wallet. I mean, there's really no such thing as a cold wallet unless you're really super paranoid. Like I bought one of the mycelium USB toys that you could plug into a printer and push a button and get a wallet, paper wallet, but they're like, don't connect the printer to the internet if you're really paranoid, right? So the beautiful thing about like multi-sig wallets, and you can Google that, is that essentially you have 2 of 3 keys or 3 of 5 keys or whatever to essentially move the asset. And so my best advice is essentially if you have to have a hot wallet, right, think about like the cash you have in your wallet, in your actual wallet, but for your long-term store of value, consider having something where you have essentially a fail-safe where you and 2 other people, 1 or 2 other people that you trust could potentially, unlock those assets in the event of your untimely demise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trap. So a honeypot is whenever you go ahead and buy the token, but you can't sell the token.
Yeah.
And you don't know that till after. There are simple ways, like on Dex Screener, it'll say honeypot, yes or no, some of those. If it's not showing up and you're not sure, I know you have friends that are devs, guys, walk around the room, make a friend with a dev, be like, hey, can you peep this real quick? I have a friend that, I have him check out a lot of my stuff too. And what were you asking, like where you store them? What was the other DJ question?
Where do you look up? So you said Dex Scanner.
Well, Dex Screener, that will automatically show you whether or not honeypot contract verification, but it's very basic, so it'll tell you some basics, but if you need more in depth, what was the one you were saying?
Chain analysis.
Chain analysis, yeah, so you go through that. But and to store them, typically with all these, they're either on your, hot wallets that are on like Phantom or MetaMask or like connected to your browser, things like that. So that's where those are typically stored for your swaps for those degen plays. And don't click ones that you don't know what they are that are getting dropped to you and dusted because they're all over the place. Do not interact.
Yeah.
Have you seen any?
Yeah, so the question was about generative voice attempts, and so it's now been essentially proven that if you have 15 seconds of someone's voice, generative AI can pretty much replicate it to pass voice authorizations. This is something that I was just at a conference for the broker-dealer space a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about as a big sort of issue to be aware of is that if you call into a call center and they can pass a voice off, that can potentially, and so you need to, one, right, figure out again, who's calling who, right? Like if you didn't call them and they didn't leave a voicemail message, and I have my phone turned on, so if you're on my contacts, it doesn't ring unless you call me twice in a row and then I still don't answer. So it's something personal. It's a little bit personal. But so yeah, no, yeah, the generative AI is, it's transformative, it's powerful, it's just a tool that can be used for good or for bad. And again, the cost is so low. That's where, the spam email, right? It costs you nothing to send millions of email messages. So I actually use for good a warm-up email service that uses generative AI to bounce email messages among every member of the service so that if the email ends up in spam, the system takes the message out of spam, puts it in the inbox, marks it important, and hits respond to raise the reputation of my email address. That's pretty cool, right? Same time though, all it has to do is now that they've attached, OpenAI to Bing or whatever it's attached to, it can literally go out and find and scrape. Like if I ask ChatGPT, why is my nickname the Little Duke? It comes up with a very plausible, the actual answer. And so it's really pretty easy for it to even outguess things about you. So yeah, voice letters of authorization are super problematic, and that's why the 2-factor, 3-factor, or 4-factor, right? Something you have, something you know, something you are, and something you do, right? That 4th factor, right? Okay, so this is a phone number we recognize, right? They passed a PIN, right? Maybe there's a fingerprint that was taken with a gummy bear, believe it or not, the gummy bear attack. But something you do, right? This call is coming in from, Uzbekistan somewhere or whatever, so it's clearly not you, right? Or how fast you type, that kind of thing. And so we just really need to be thinking about multi-factor authentication when it comes to security.
So, with email, I think most people use a Gmail or some large company, and they're pleased with how that company filters out the spam. But in crypto and blockchain, like we pride ourselves in we're going to do our own. We're going to be, out there in the Wild West and do it ourselves. And then it's but are there more Coinbases and Geminis and large companies that are more trustworthy now? BlockFi went bankrupt. That was not trustworthy. Is Coinbase trustworthy? What's your level of trust and reliance on these large companies in this industry when it comes to, just convenience? Jeremy mentioned ETFs as a way to get into this space in a trustworthy way without having to hold your own keys. What would you all say about your risk level or trust level of using a Coinbase or other companies to try to handle the risk?
Well, personally, I like cold storage. I think that's the safest and most secure, but that comes with some nuances, right? And it is something that each person does need to consider for themselves. For example, if it's not a multi-sig solution and you're the sole source, right? If you lose, maybe it's your Ledger Nano or something like that, you lose that.
It burns up.
Yeah, your house burns down, right? Or you don't have your seed phrase. I mean, there are all kinds of things where now you're the last line of defense, right? And so for a lot of people, we're probably unique in this room, but for a lot of people, most people don't want to handle their life savings, right? And have that risk fall on their shoulders. So then you do start considering, okay, what are some alternatives? Multi-sig is a good option. I come across this at work sometimes, and some people do have a substantial amount of money on something like Coinbase, and I have to have that discussion with them. It's like, look, there is risk there, right? There's no guarantees that's going to be there. If something does go wrong, is there going to be a bailout? I don't know, right? We'd have to see what happens and maybe how many powerful players actually lose money in that type of attack. But so kind of going through your own risk analysis, do I understand my own considerations and how strong is my own security if I'm handling it myself? And if not, do I need some help? But again, a multi-sig is a great option where you've got, 2 or 3 or 3 or 5 or some kind of consideration like that to help provide some additional security. Megan was talking about the product that they're building, which is essentially a multi-sig type of option where we're going to break the keys up into multiple different spots. And so guess what? If you personally get hacked on your own, you can't tank your own. And if the credit union, something happens to them, that also doesn't end up affecting you because they don't have access or control over your coins too. So just, again, trying to do some consideration for yourself, what makes sense for you. But I think from a security standpoint, I'm not aware of anything that beats cold storage. If you want the most secure, that's probably the way to go.
This is very loaded. There's a lot you could say on this. Okay, so I agree with you. I think cold storage is definitely the best, but I'm also an extremely paranoid person, and I think with crypto it's important. So I'm someone that keeps like a little bit in all different places. I try all different hardware wallets. I don't keep all my eggs in one basket, but I'm also certainly not afraid to keep funds on exchange because I am a trader. So I need to have those on there and available. But I do think it's important to also be mindful of the exchanges that you're using because they do have a lot of KYC policies that are really coming into effect now. And there's a lot there like, hey, you're in the US, we can't, you can't trade on our exchange. And it's going to get to the point where, anything under $1,000, you don't have to KYC, but above that you do. So be mindful of that. If you've left a lot of money on exchange, it's going to be a pain in the butt to get it off. Or if you need to, like in my case, get a digital e-residency outside of the US, but you have to think of all of these different things, if you're playing the game on different exchanges. But yes, I love the cold wallets. And I also think it's important. I think a lot of people give CEXs a really hard time, centralized exchanges, when they shouldn't. I think, there's been some bad actors in the space and everything, but I'm also not opposed to banks custodying assets because when I think about people like my grandparents or just my own parents, I would not trust them with their own keys. And I think if you're, putting millions of dollars or whatever it is into something, it would be a lot of peace of mind to have that storage. And I know, for example, Ripple is working on that and they've acquired Medico, and that's a way to store digital assets for everyone. They use PolySign, etc. So there's all different things, but I like to do a little variety, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
My only really comment is like, what part of decentralized don't you understand? Like, why would you centralize your risk? What's wrong with you? Divide and conquer, split it up for sure, absolutely. Like cold wallets for sure. The hot stuff, it's especially it's at risk. Because again, here's the actual riskiest part. It's not so much like Coinbase is gonna disappear necessarily, right? But what's more likely going to happen is that your machine's going to get popped. They're going to use your machine to get access to your account, and they're going to liquidate your coins, and you won't be able to prove that it wasn't you at the keyboard.
Scary stuff. Okay, a couple questions, and then we got to move on to our last topic for the night. Yes.
I'm wondering, I think this is
So I am wearing a Bitcoin t-shirt. This is so just my people, but I am not a maximalist by any stretch of the imagination. The thing I actually like about Bitcoin is that it is not, quote, Turing complete, right? Because it doesn't need to be for the most part. Literally everything that people claim they can do in smart contracts, you can do with multi-sig wallets to some extent and actually have humans pushing the button or other pieces of software or structure around it to do it. So I think there's elegance and simplicity. I think the fact that it's been pretty well vetted. The magic of all blockchains is not so much the cryptographic proof and that's built on the previous, this digital signature system. That's cool, it's tamper evident. It might be tamper proof, except in the case of when Ethereum goes through the DAO and then just decides to unwind a bunch of stuff magically and then becomes radioactive in banking. Set that aside. But I do think that there is some strength and simplicity, and the fact that nobody's been able to shut it down because the actual magic happens in the gossip protocol. The layer that actually connects this stuff together is damn near bomb proof. So I think that's really, of all the magic that we got, and all this stuff existed, right? LimeWire, the peer-to-peer sharing stuff, right? Think back if LimeWire could be tamper-proof so that the music companies couldn't come in and poison the network, right? We'd be in a much different place right now if we had essentially blockchain technology with things like LimeWire back in the day, right? So I think I'm very bullish on the protocol. I think in terms of the future of software, it's all APIs at this point. I mean, you can go really pretty far with a no-code platform. I mean, you can literally sort of drag and drop and wire stuff together. And that, you've got this beautiful proof of concept. I mean, Bitcoin is the king of store of value today. And everything else, and it's also just a hypothesis, right? And the worth of a thing is the price it'll bring. And so, yes, as the price rises, please understand that that value is not being created, it's being transferred, right? Just like every other financial system, this is a wealth transfer system. And that's not bad because, again, the worth of a thing is the price it'll bring. It's the value and utility. So Bitcoin is the first, right? Decentralized, right? Custodian, intermediary free, friction free, deflationary system, right? And obviously we can fork it if we want to. But I'm not a maximalist by any stretch of the imagination. I think all these coins are experiments. And I think, again, if it has value and utility for you, then it might be worth, owning a slice of that economy.
All right, well, with that, we got to move on to our next talk, our last talk of the night. So thank you all so much for being on this panel. They will be around for afterwards, so grab them if you have questions.